Minister, no, sorry, not the Deputy Minister, the head of the Energy Reforms and International Relations Department,
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Zaza Chikadze.
yes. Good afternoon or good
Good
morning, maybe.
afternoon. Thank you. Very good to see you.
Thank you.
I don't know if Margalita also joined. I don't see her in the list of participants yet. But I would suggest that we start our workshop as planned. The title of the workshop, as you all know, is it's a training workshop on guidelines and best practices for micro, small, and medium enterprises in Georgia. I think before we do that, we need to go through the housekeeping rules. Please, everybody who is not supposed to speak now, please turn off your microphones so we don't hear noise. The recording has started. And again, I will repeat, we are starting the online training workshop on guidelines and best practices for micro, small, and medium enterprises in Georgia in delivering energy efficient products and in providing renewable energy equipment. And the workshop will be officially opened by Mr. Zaza Chikradze, head of the Energy Reforms and International Relations Department of the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia. Mr. Chikradze, please, the floor is yours. Thank you. So, Mr. Chikradze, please unmute your mic.
ბატონო ზაზა, თუ შეიძლება ჩართოთ მიკროფონი და ისე გვესაუბრეთ.
Okay.
კი ბატონო.
Now, can you hear?
Yes, please.
Again muted accidentally, I think.
It is not my fault. And now?
Now, yes.
Oh, okay. I will try to. Okay. მოგესალმებით კიდევ ერთხელ. მე გახლავართ ზაზა ჩიხაძე.
I would like to greet you once more. I am Zaza Chikradze, head of Reforms and International Relations. At the first place, I would like to extend my deep gratitude to UN.
კომისიის წინაშე რომელმაც აი ამ მძიმე სიტუაციის მიუხედავად
which despite of this really difficult situation enabled us and supported us to carry out a really important survey of dedicated to evaluate COVID-19 impact on renewable energy enterprises in Georgia. This is absolutely crucial because Georgia just recently started making steps in this direction. Quite recently, the legal basis based on which particular activities and reforms shall be implemented was developed, and all of a sudden COVID happened, and of course we did not change our way and our direction, but of course faced really serious challenges as the whole world. And we appeared to be really sensitive because it somehow matched with the period we started to make first step in direction of this reform. But with the help and support of our respected partners, we still managed to continue this process. And regarding this research, I want to extend my gratitude to Energy Efficiency Center, which was implementer of this research, and UNDP, of course. At the first place, I would like to highlight that we become more and more active in this regard. Now we are preparing bylaw acts which should support more particular and detailed steps in terms of renewable energy and energy efficiency to encourage activities in this field for which this research and today's event are one more supporting and important components. I want to extend once more my deep, deep gratitude to all of you and wish you a successful working day. Thank you. Georgi?
Margalita, hello. Hello.
I would like to greet you. I think that Georgi, if I'm not mistaken, I came from the other meeting, and so I want to introduce Oleg, who will welcome us. Will say a couple of words regarding our cooperation, namely with the help of Oleg and Yuan. This research was done, as Zaza already mentioned. The research is carried out by Energy Efficiency Center, but of course with great contribution of the office, and we have today representatives and also from Geneva UN office, Mr. Oleg Zubinsky, and I'm giving floor namely to him, to Mr. Oleg, and I want to ask you, every participant, to be really active in this meeting. This is 2 hours meeting. We'll share the document in both languages to you. English version is already ready and will be placed on the website, and but Georgian might need a bit a week to be finalized, and we'll share Georgian document as well to interested people, and so you will be able to see this brief study in both languages. And of course I want to hear your feedback as well. Oleg, please, the floor is yours for your welcoming speech and to say your opinion regarding this research, and then Nino, please.
Thank you very much, Margalita. I would like to greet all participants of this workshop. It is great to see such an interest, not just from Georgia, but also from people outside Georgia. Very briefly, some background. UNEC, UN Economic Commission for Europe, is an implementing partner in the UN Development Account Project Global Initiative towards post-COVID-19 resurgence of the MSME sector. MSME stands for micro, small, and medium enterprises. The project is led by our colleagues from UNCTAD and our sister commission in Western Asia, ESCWA. The overall goal of the project is to strengthen the capacity and resilience of MSMEs in developing countries and economies in transition to mitigate the economic and social impact of the global COVID-19 crisis. In the framework of this project, the Sustainable Energy Division, which I represent, I'm regional advisor on energy, focuses on developing guidelines and best practices. And one of the sets of these guidelines and best practices that we have developed on the regional level was for MSMEs in delivering energy efficient products and in providing renewable energy equipment. The next stage, I would say, of the project was to customize these guidelines and best practices to specific conditions of pilot countries. And the 2 pilot countries that were selected initially were North Macedonia and Georgia. We had the report for North Macedonia and workshop similar to the one that we are having today, done a few weeks ago. And now we have this workshop for Georgia, and the report is ready for now in English. And as Margalita just said, we hope to have the Georgian version sometime next week. So as I just said, Georgia is one of the pilot countries, and the whole idea of the workshop is to present main findings and recommendations of the work that has been done. The consultant for this project, national consultant, is Mr. George Abulashvili. He will be doing the, I would call it, main presentation at this workshop. I would also like to thank colleagues from the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, and in particular, Ms. Margalita Arabidze and her colleague, Natalia Jamburia, who were extremely instrumental in making this report happen, and who helped. First of all, it was, I mean, essentially this work and selection of Georgia as a pilot country was done because we received a request from the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development to have this work done. So without further ado, I'm giving back the microphone to Margalita, and also using the opportunity to thank colleagues from the United Nations Development Program country office in Georgia for their help in this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleg. We did not cooperate only under this project with the Economic Commission. Natalia and me also are actively engaged in regional groups. This is basically in terms of in regard to promotion of renewable and green energy. Oleg's role is really crucial in this respect. We are always ready to say sound thanks to Oleg, because with your support we had really good results, and we hope that this will be continued. As for today's meeting also was facilitated by Tbilisi UNDP office. Today we have with us Mrs. Nino Antadze. We cooperated with her. We have really long-term experience of implementation of many interesting projects in cooperation with her and with UNDP. Quite often we communicate and have support from them on climate issues, whether this is software or sharing international best practice, inviting experts. As I also mentioned, that we very actively work on legislation, but preparation of bylaw acts is absolutely crucial. And I would like to highlight that Nino's support and her office and international and local experts, with their support, we often get many interesting recommendations which we use in our ongoing projects. Nino is our supporter within the frameworks of this project, which will be presented in details by Georgi Abulashvili at the presentation, and I want to give floor to Nino. And if I'm mistaken, Nino, correct me. Nino is Energy and Environment Direction Head, and she will welcome us. Thank you very much, Marita. Thanks to Oleg, Zaza. Yes, definitely my title was mentioned correctly. I am happy to have opportunity to welcome the participants of the meeting on behalf of UNDP. As it was already mentioned, we also participated. We made a small contribution in difference from UNEC. In conducting today's meeting, I want to take this opportunity and extend my deep gratitude to the ministry for its interest in this direction and for the effort which you make in order to strengthen policy in this respect, legislation in this field. But of course, all this requires investments and a really active cooperation with private sector and with the business. Consequently, the topic of today's meeting is absolutely important since the research gives us really useful information about the impact of COVID-19 on economy, in particular on this sector, and how our businesses dealt, if they managed to deal with these problems, and how they managed and handled the implementation of renewable energy, green energy. I mean, in conditions of this limited economic resources. So today we'll have opportunity, our participants will have opportunity to participate in discussions. It's absolutely important to discuss how rehabilitation could be managed to bring back economy and continuation of works, at least at the point of pre-COVID point. Yeah, and I want to extend my gratitude to Georgi Abulashvili, to representatives of business, since this information, since they also were interested in this information, and of course my gratitude to UNEC Sustainable Energy Department. We also cooperate with Oleg. We have joint projects with him, and I am really happy to uh, have to cooperate. I always happy to cooperate with him. I will use this opportunity and say a couple of words about UNDP. Besides active cooperation with a civil sector, on a public sector, on economic development, and so on and so on, we also cooperate in terms of energy and environment issues. In energy, we mean encouraging the use of energy efficient technologies, renewable energies, production, and so on. Our main activity, as Marita mentioned, is basically technical assistance and facilitation in terms for improvement or development of a proper policy, bylaw, and the development of bylaw and strategic documents. I think this is very important support. Without this, even if we speak endlessly, nothing will happen and will be done. And I would like to repeat once more that the role of private sector is really crucial, because investment in this process, because investments basically come from private sectors, and cooperation should be really, really close. For UNDP, it's also very important, and one of the priority is green development, eco-friendly development, sustainable development, and promotion of green economy. I will not want to take much of your time about benefits of green economy. Georgia is not an exception. Many UN member states go to this direction. Gradually, they go to switch to more sustainable way, and we are not an exception. We are also doing this, and we want to and we are willingly promoting green economy. And if we speak about green economy, of course, close cooperation and relationships with between public and private sectors is absolutely essential and key precondition. And maybe it's also very important. I want to say a couple of words about commitments of Georgia regarding climate crisis. We all agree that the world is facing two huge crises. One is climate change, which is not perceived as something taking place right now. But countries are observing it in a longer time perspective, but despite of this, there are still international agreements. For example, Paris Agreement, where Georgia is also among these countries, where countries united and agreed to somehow significantly reduce emissions by 2030. And so anthropogenic human factor for mitigating this climate change crisis. Therefore, I think that such researches we present today, and I'm really happy that Georgia is among first countries which did such analysis and provided this information. So such studies are really supportive and for reducing emissions, giving more opportunities to be more energy efficient and use more share of renewable energy in general. This is a really topical issue, and I believe that today's meeting will be interesting for almost everyone and useful, of course. So I wish you successful meeting. I want to apologize because I have another meeting and I have to leave. I'm so sorry that I do not have opportunity to participate in this discussion, but I have seen the report already. The information is very interesting. Examples are really important, including from other countries. And I'm really optimistic of that recommendations and results of this study will be used in practice. Thank you, Nino. Thank you for being so supportive. Thank you for your participation. Nino touched so important issues on which our ministry works together with the Ministry of Environment very actively. I don't want to somehow go behind agenda. I understand that you all have other commitments as well. And now I want to give floor to Mr. Alexander Dubovsky. I would like to welcome you warmly. I'm really missing our face-to-face meetings in Geneva, Bangkok, or Tbilisi. We are really missing our expert group members. Alexander, I welcome you. He is the Commission UNC expert, head of expert group. He is leading this group for years. His deputy is Natalia Jamburia, who is at the same time head of division in our ministry. And so we are working together and cooperating for years, and we know we know quite well Alexander's talent and skills. Now we are short of time, so I'm directly giving floor to Alexander. Please say a couple of words about this project and about these directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita, and thank you for the kind words. First, good morning to all the people in Georgia, and good afternoon to all the people Western. What I can say is definitely the group of experts on energy efficiency had a remarkable cooperation with Georgian governments, with ministries, with the NGO sector, as well as the private sector for years. And we are expecting that to be further increased in the next years. What makes my job as an introductory speaker here easier is that we already had a good coverage both from the ministry, from Oleg Zubinsky, from the UNEC, as well as from UNDP in Georgia. So what I can just focus on is that, as Mr. Zubinski already mentioned, this is a project that is from a more wider approach to how to deal with this post-COVID situation. And as we are already in the middle of this pandemic that nobody expected, we can see that it has different effects on different parts of the economies. And it's quite important not only to preserve the economic growth, or at this point in time, maybe economic stagnation, but not a downfall. We definitely also have to look at how the COVID situation affects all parts of the economy and all parts of social life. And this project actually points quite to the interplay between it, because most of the best practices that has been researched both in the overall UNEC report, as well as the deep dives in the 4 countries, we can see that the industries are adjusting according to the needs of the people, and that has to be emphasized, and that has to be looked into a way that it's going to further create policies that will make this interplay between the social relations, the private sector, as well as the overall economic development of the country to be in more of a growth than a downfall. What I've seen both in the report from Georgia as well as the North Macedonian report is that we have some similarities, but also we have some different regional perspectives that all have to be taken into account when develop new policies. I believe that the consultants in the next part of this workshop will go into details of what we are going to discuss today. But what is very important is that once we had this overarching report that points to significant best practices for the micro, small, and medium enterprises to deliver energy efficiency products and provide renewable energy equipment, regional perspectives and national deep dives increase that value tenfold, because not only does we share the experiences from all the countries, but we get some best practices that are specifically vital for each national development in this next post-COVID COVID situation. And this creates added value to what the regional report is doing. And when we get all of this together, we get all these 4 national reports, we can kind of see what are the similarities and what are the differences, both in how the governments are approaching this I would not say subsidizing, but helping the small and medium enterprises in investing energy efficiency products to make them more resilient and make them more tough to handle in the next crisis situation. So I would not go into much details, because I believe that our consultants will have much more to say. What I can definitely invite you all that please try to be as much as included within the discussion, so not only we get the perspective from the findings of our consultants, but your opinions on particular subject as well. So thank you very much, and sorry for going over time. Thank you, Margarita, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I wanted to agree with Alexander that in general, the state support is absolutely crucial for enterprises, and this is shown in the research as well. Now I want to give floor to Mr. Oleg Zubinski. Oleg is regional advisor of UNSC, and Oleg will moderate the next session. I will be back by the end of the meeting. Thank you. Oleg, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Margalita. Thank you. I would like to thank all participants or speakers at the opening session. Nino, who I understand has left already because she had other commitments. Alexander Dukovsky, we know him well, and I think it also gives additional importance to the work that Georgia Bulashvili has done and to the to this workshop. That the chair of the group of experts on energy efficiency, of the UNEC group of experts, speaks at the workshop like this. Exactly what he said. It is extremely important to adjust the general recommendations, the regional recommendations, to the specific circumstances of a given country. And having Georgia as one of pilot countries is very important. We will also hear at this session views from Vitaly Baker, who was instrumental in developing the regional report, and also from Sasha Panevsky, who was our consultant for a similar study for North Macedonia. I think having this regional perspective and the perspective from other countries, kind of reflections on what was done for Georgia would be important. But before that, I would like to give the floor to Georgia Bulashvili, Georgia Bulashvili, who will be presenting the guidelines and best practices that he has developed with support from his colleagues, with support from the ministry and people who participated in this survey that he developed. The title of his presentation is COVID-19 Impact on Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency MSMEs in Georgia, and Guidelines and Best Practices to Overcome its Consequences. George, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Oleg. Thanks, colleagues. With your permission, I will use an opportunity and speak in the native language, so please be ready for the translation.
I would like to greet you, colleagues. At the first place, I want to express my deep gratitude to UNEC and UNDP for being supportive, enabling me to participate in this process. I want to say thanks to Zaza, Marita, Natalia. Without your support, this project would never happen in this form. I want to extend my gratitude to to every person whom we contacted in the process of this study. So it's a Georgian expression when first person leads bridge to another. This means it's Georgian purely expression, and this means that when someone does something first, this experience is helpful for the others. I will not stop for a long time on this framework, but I will say that this is part of global initiative towards post-COVID-19 resurgence of the MSM sector. And as it was mentioned, the conclusions and findings made by this study will be used in target sector renewable energy and renewable energy sector, and for improvement of living standard of Georgian economy, of Georgian population. Sorry, I will start from longer history and start from whatever made impact to on economy. Of course, the disease itself does not have impact on economy if it is not transformed into pandemic. But in this case, regrettably, COVID became a pandemic, and it made different kinds of it impacted the whole world, but different governments had individual decisions. So Oxford University scientists categorized and out of 184 countries, the response of government of Georgia, meaning restrictions imposed not only directly to economy, but indirectly as well, were evaluated as having 15th position amongst the severest restrictions, and this of course had impact not unlinear impact on economy in Georgia. On more developed countries are higher than we, so it's difficult to evaluate the causes, but this study requires attention because it provides grounds for logic continuation of information, and to speak about the results which we have this year, comparison of which with the last year period, especially last year pandemic was already started, and it became acute in February, and was severely reflected on economic growth. We do not have yet March data. Geostat did not have it, so we have -11 and -5% compared to respective months of previous years, and according to midterm period, it could be evaluated as 8.3%. Especially vulnerable was construction sector, which and this industry represents one of the key consumers of renewable and efficient energy technologies, and also hospitality sector and other sectors. So these are two key sectors which appeared to be under the biggest impact, and this of course had indirect impact on small and medium enterprises engaged in renewable energy technologies. So almost 1 billion lari in 1 million, in amount around 1 billion lari was reduced turnover. This is really significant fund amount for sustainability of our economy. The next to somehow narrow the target area, then we evaluated SME turnover and capacity expressed in two indicators, number of employees and turnover in 2019. And according to the data of 2019 and first quarters and 2024, first two quarters we are based on Geostat data, and newer data were not available because data processing requires time. So you see here that there is 25% decrease, which is really significant between these between the second quarter of 2019 and 2020. So this decrease is smaller between first quarter because there was kind of inertia when these restrictions were imposed. It was continued in inertia, but when in second quarter, this became even more visible. I mean, after restrictions. So we see here again fluctuation number of employees in MSMEs. This is minus 22%. So whoever has already seen a study prepared by me could see that several packages, support packages, were proposed by the government of Georgia to the citizens as well as to the to the enterprises in order to reduce economic results. And that's why only minus 22% was a reduction of number of employees. Otherwise, I assume that this figure could be doubled. However, with your permission, so I will be focused on provision of key message. One issue about which was familiar for me, but I'm basically focused on thematic issues and I did not have precise information, but it appeared that we do not have entire understanding and definition of small and medium enterprise. So there are different, there is so kind of tax authorities define different classifications, slightly different from Geostat classification, and we follow the Geostat classification because we use their information. Both are similar but slightly different. I mean, of tax authorities and Geostat. Geostat definition and division between these enterprises is closer to international practice. I will tell you a couple of words regarding methodology. When the concession processes were finalized with UNSC, we started to collect a table of surveys which were already done, and we use studies, and Nino will speak about this later. And we use the different important researches on country level and regional study as well. Vitaly will speak about this after my presentation. We developed a database. I do not know at what extent it is complete, but we use it. We used all sources and tried to develop a database of all SMEs working in energy efficiency and renewable energy issues. We developed a pretty detailed questionnaire and started preparation of interviews. Regrettably, I need to say that I don't think that we were that successful. Of course, this has objective reasons. It was restrictions period. We did not have opportunity to visit them, and basically we distributed questionnaires, phone. We tried to get in touch via telephone, and finally, we managed to record only 15 interviews, results of which will be presented on the next slide. So it is to be noted that only 23% of interviewed companies mentioned that COVID restrictions did not make a significant on them. All the rest were influenced, but their hate and severity of impact was evaluated in different level. Almost 14% of the companies mentioned that they had to sell some assets in order to allocate additional in order to find additional resources to save their companies. 20% of the companies mentioned that they had to reduce salaries for their staff. 73% mentioned that they did not change number of employees, and they did not leave anybody without a job. But there was one really vulnerable issue. So, for example, some companies had to send their staff in unpaid leave. 7% of companies mentioned that their relationships with banks were changed, their commitments were changed. I mean, these commitments were increased. Of some commitments were not increased, but existing ones became really heavy in conditions of restriction. 13% mentioned that they used effectively the support package provided by the state. Other companies also received support package in different forms. In many cases, this was not well adjusted to small and medium business, and more than half of the companies mentioned that it was really difficult for them to start export-import operations, to continue export-import operations. And we all know that basically our market is fed with import, And despite the fact that cargoes were not restricted, this was still painful. The impact was still painful. The small and medium enterprises basically had need to had identified popular measures taken by them to reduce the impact from COVID-19. This was as follows: dismissal of employees, sending employees on unpaid leave, in some cases transitioning business on a partial or completely online model, which in turn required increased expenses because some additional equipment or something was necessary. Some businesses were forced to either fully or partially reduce production, and some entrepreneurs transformed their businesses to better adapt to a crisis, not necessarily associated with renewable energy, in order to save their businesses. Despite of the fact that the situation described by me is not that positive, seems of course not that positive, but still in Georgia, some projects were continued, some are still continued, some are finalized, in which participate business operators, and they implement different energy projects. Based on this information, we can conclude that all these projects are started or ongoing only because besides client and vendor, there was a third element. This was either the most active instruments developed by the government. This is Rural Development Agency or Producing Georgia. I mean, projects are funded through these tools. All these large-scale projects which still survived were supported by these instruments. So this best practice analysis also demonstrates that this was additional stimulating environment, which is absolutely important in context of pandemic. Key conclusions made as a result of the study. They are based on table researches, I mean, document paperwork, the study of the documents. So they are as follows. A limited availability of funding programs for financial stabilization of MSMEs. So no special package was provided despite of having special niche in Georgian economy. Also, no tailored support to MSMEs working in renewable energy and energy efficiency sector. Since the companies, MSMEs, had to get to be adapted in distance sales, which is really specific economic sector, all these preconditioned that they had to mobilize additional resources. in order to work in a distant mode and not to somehow really combat or eliminate key crisis impact. It's all one. It seems that this distance mode will last for a long time. So this means that for such enterprises, we might we should maybe we could provide additional support package enabling them to work effectively in distance mode. The next the next conclusion is that though no company announced itself as bankrupted, almost all applied radical measures to save their businesses. Also, government of Georgia uh, in order to protect population from social risks. In order to support population and some enterprises, the state subsidized energy products, I mean electricity and natural gas, which even more weakened, not that well developed and already weak demand for renewable energy. But as a way out from this was a decision, I mean reduced demand on market was increase of tariffs by regulatory, and this increased the demand for renewable energy, and they become clients for these companies engaged in renewable energy, because for them increase of the tariffs became really tangible, and especially for the business subjects which have a share of consumed in production of which share of consumed energy is really high. Conclusion the companies made is that they started to think actively on accumulation of raw materials, but this is associated with the other challenge because so the raw materials in the warehouse stored in the warehouse require additional investment and bank relationships and so on. Consequently, as it was made, it appeared almost 30%, 13% of companies applied for additional resources. Now we are moving to the most important phase, main recommendations, which we consider to, when I say we do not, I do not mean just energy efficiency center team, but colleagues. So we agreed our recommendations with which should be presented to the country, which the response to which will strengthen the sector's sustainability. This is rather awareness raising information of awareness raising nature. When our group worked on COVID situation analysis, despite of many proposals and support packages provided by the state. Information about these packages was somehow scattered. You know, there was no consolidated document, and this was approved by the process as well. And no one know about this. So information was about COVID, information was on the COVID platform, but it was distributed in different regulations and in small enterprises where just few people work, and sometimes top managers work physically. They do not have time to spend much time for collecting and analyzing this scattered information. Therefore, there is a recommendation to, so it's better to consolidate all these support packages to make them clearer and consequently effective. So the recommendation number two, which is also critical, is that government and national, so this is based on results from companies we interviewed and information which we got in the end of the year when commercial banks published their annual results, and it appeared that commercial banks had really profitable year. And despite of the fact that I am energy person with my background, all trainings and literature which I have seen explains that business is that milking cow, which on which you should spend resources when it has problems to ensure dairy products in long-term period. So it would be desired if National Bank developed particular recommendations for commercial banks to reduce their profit level in order to reduce risks for business. The government itself proposed kind of tax relief to the companies, but it would be more logic if this leave would be transformed as an amnesty for particular period. This is our recommendation. The recommendation which refers to national programs, rural development program, and produce in Georgia. I would like to highlight that both these programs could be used for co-funding renewable and energy efficient technologies, but we need to take into consideration that SMEs do not have resources for analytical work, so they need easier, simpler, and a more accessible package that will be more effective. And I think that the most critical recommendation maybe it would be rather effective rather than subsidizing energy bills for households and food product producers for short period of time, promote and subsidize investments in renewable and energy efficient products and services, which will accomplish in energy and bill savings in longer term perspective. I mean, for the same people, that would make much bigger contribution for in environmental and energy commitments of the country. And I believe that and the people I mean beneficiaries of this support would be much more satisfied. Important recommendations were prepared for business subjects, and key recommendation for business subjects, in my opinion, is their development and the support to clusterization, association, in order to ensure better communication of their problems to government and decision makers. Second, I mentioned on a previous slide to warehouse and storing on raw materials, I mean development of entire base, which could be used as common resource, which would bring more benefit with less and this will also strengthen their market potential in case of this and other challenges. Also important recommendation about business subject. This is a revision of strategies and implement procurements, maximum use of local raw materials. So I mean substitution of imported raw materials with local ones. Here we mean not just high technology equipment, but some consumables and materials which are imported to Georgia from hundreds of kilometers. So in this respect also could be developed a cluster of small and medium enterprises to strengthen their sustainability. Basically, that's all from my side. I don't know at what extent I was clear. I did my best to present everything clearly, but I think I managed this. As Marita mentioned, the guidelines, Georgian version of guidelines is ready, but we need almost 1 week for revision, and then it will be accessible. And English version of the document is already available on UNSC website, and interested people have opportunity to see it. Thank you very much once more. Thank you, Oleg. Thank you, Marita, for opportunity I was given. So I observed my profession from a side. You know, I came out of the box, and so I have assessed what condition business operators are. Thank you very much. You gave me official document to knock to people in this lockdown and share and ask them how they were and have some social relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. I think that was very informative. We are now a little bit short on time, but I couldn't cut George short. This was the main presentation. What you can indeed see in the report, which is much more extensive than the presentation that George just gave, indeed, not just the recommendations and key findings, but what is behind them. And I encourage you to look at the report. Also look at the case studies. They are very interesting. They see how in the very difficult conditions, companies can be innovative, can not just survive, but grow. So I really encourage you to look at the report. The English version is available. The Georgian version will be available soon. I will put, for ease of reference, the link to the study, or rather to the to the study and to the workshop in the chat of this workshop. I do encourage you. You have now heard the presentation from George. I think we will have question and answer session at the end of this session. So in the meantime, please use the chat. You see it here. Please use it for your questions or comments on George's presentation and the presentations that you will hear after him. So George, thank you again. And thank you to Margalita and the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development for supporting this this work. I now give the floor to Ms. Nino Cholokashvili of the PricewaterhouseCoopers, Georgia. She will speak about the topic is Georgian companies under pandemic. Nino, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I would like to greet you once more. Thank you very much for inviting me. We got engaged in this process immediately after the beginning of the pandemic. We carried out two studies, one on evaluation of COVID impact, and now together within the frameworks of the BRD project, we work on development of long-term strategy for defeating COVID impact. And today I will present a presentation which is summary of our two studies. This study was carried out in October 2020. It was presented in October 2020, but since the pandemic is continued, it is still urgent, it is still topical, but please keep in mind that we collected this information in September 2020. The study was carried out online with participation of Georgian companies. In second, 774 companies participated, and in first, which was carried out in April, about 2,000. We covered Tbilisi and the regions of Georgia, and companies of all sizes participated. So you can see that the biggest share was micro enterprises, then 22 small, and 11 medium. And also 17% were self-employed companies. In the I will speak about impact of pandemic on operation. So I would like to highlight that Yeah, it is very important to assess what kind of problems were created, which were different from sector to sector and from size to size. And our main goal was to evaluate the problems and challenges and solutions. First, the most important question was about impact of COVID pandemic on their activities. The biggest impact. So the darker is it was this problem was for more company. So in our upper part we have September and the lower April, which are visually compared. So the biggest problem is decrease in demand, then change of currency rate. It was equally problematic for big, medium, and small enterprises. So, of course, locking the borders were always also a problem. It's different. It differs from sector to sector. For example, for trade, it was the most painful, and it touched companies of all sizes. And also late payments was mentioned as a problem. And this was even more painful for smaller ones. If we compare this with April study, we'll see that number of companies saying that the decrease in demand was a problem, which we can think that this first shock in April was somehow reduced by September. So there was a small but still a relief. I will not go to details because we are short of time. The next question which we asked the companies was about COVID impact on their turnover, income. In first part, we see that for majority of companies, 38% says higher than 50% decrease in turnover, which is really high. And the number of companies mentioning that from 25 to 50% was the decrease. And only small percentage mentioned that they cannot assess this. Compared to previous months, we see that there is some improvement, where 63% mentioned that in April mentioned that decrease was more than 50%, but in September, this figure was less. Companies had to dismiss people. It was more critical in April when 27% of companies mentioned that they had 100% dismissal, but in September, this percentage was 11%. And also 56% of the companies in September mentioned that they did not decrease anything. As I have already mentioned, situation is different when we speak about sectors. Key sectors were trade, which we interviewed, were trade, production, communications, but as Georgi mentioned, for you, the most important is production and hospitality sector. And when we speak about the staff reduction, 57% of companies in construction and in hotels. 25 mentioned that they did not reduce staff, but if we look at 100% decrease here, hotels are leading. 22% mentioned that they had to dismiss 100% of staff, and in construction this figure is 5%, and there is different distribution in percentages. If we compare with April, we'll see that situation was much more difficult in April. 46% of the companies mentioned that they had to dismiss 100%, and in construction 17%. Also, we talked to companies about their expectations. It was really important to see what was the attitude of the companies regarding future situation. It's very difficult to predict COVID, but decisions of the companies depend, of course, on their expectations. We asked them what they expect during upcoming 3 months, and we saw that in September optimism of the companies was higher, and compared to April. This was associated with the opening of economy. Out of 49 companies saying that they are more than 100%. They have turnover decrease. It was reduced to 25, and the number of companies which do not expect reduction of turnover is 15%. We also asked the companies whether they plan. He also mentioned that there was a number of companies was big who sent on unpaid leave their staff, and we asked whether they planned to offer such leave to the staff, and compared to April, we still have a decrease, and companies who thought in April that 100% will be sent for unpaid leave. This was in April. This was also reduced by September. Also, the number of the companies which do not plan to send on long-term leave their staff, this number is also increased, and it is 56% in September. By sectors, we asked the companies about the planned decrease or sending staff decrease, or planning or sending staff to unpaid leave. Again, we are focused on hospitality sector. We'll see that expectations are improved in construction and hospitality. Still, there is improvement. Number of companies planning 100% dismissal or long-term leave is also reduced. And also, if we look at number of companies which does not plan dismissal or leave of sending on leave of staff, this figure was increased in 39% in September in construction, and in in hotels again 26. Financial challenges of business in the pandemic was the biggest challenge. Access to finances. We dedicated big part of our study to this issue. One of the first questions we were interested, we wanted to see how many companies had to stop their operations and how many of them reopened their business. We saw that 63% were stopped in quarantine period, and out of them 75% renewed their operations after the end of quarantine, but regrettably 25% mentioned that they could not open businesses after quarantine. At least by September, opening was hindered by closed borders. This was the most frequently mentioned. Then the decrease in demand, and then regulations which did not enable particular enterprises to reopen their businesses. Also, we asked how much meeting quarantine requirements costed to companies. The answers were absolutely different. For some, it was just 500 lari, but for 22%, so more than 5,000. So it's by size. The bigger company was, the more expensive it was to meet the regulations. So we were interested how long companies could maintain liquidity, meaning that they have sufficient sources to continue operations and to make expenses important for the company. We see that difference is quite obvious by sizes of companies. The most are bigger companies, which say that they will not have problems in operation for upcoming 6 months, but in case of self-employed and micro and small companies, this is much smaller, this figure. Also, 18% of the companies, or self-employed companies, mentioned that they have already lost liquidity, and then there is difference by months. So company of which size can continue operation for how long time. Then, of course, we got interested whether these companies require additional sources, and this is similar to April data, and out of them, quite small was number of those in April who came to bank and applied for any product, but in September more companies came to bank for funding, but also the number of companies who did not get loan rejected for funding was also increased. So light pink is companies who did not apply for funding, and orange is those who already got funding. Of course, funding was got mostly by bigger companies. So that's all from my side. I'm ready to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nino. That was a very interesting presentation. I would like to ask Nino if this presentation could be shared on our website. Okay. Thank you, Nino. I would be good if you could send it either directly to me or to Margalita or George, and then we will also post it to the workshop webpage. Thank you again. I would encourage participants to use chat for questions and comments on George's and Nino's presentations, and also just to make a note that, as I can see, PricewaterhouseCoopers was able to interview more companies. That's good, but it's also good to have this kind of comparison. The presentations are not exactly, not just the presentation, but the studies are not exactly the same. So I think they're complementary, and it's good to have this comparison. I would like to give the floor now to Vitaly Baker, an independent expert who was quite instrumental, as I mentioned before, in developing the regional guidelines and best practices for MSMEs in energy efficient equipment and energy efficient and renewable energy equipment. Vitaly, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, colleagues. For me, it's a real pleasure to participate in our event today and see familiar people and faces and communicate with our partners and colleagues located in Georgia and other countries which are participating in our event today. I will try to be short as far as we are running a little bit over the time. So as Oleg mentioned, I was involved in the preparation of the regional overview of the pandemic outbreak results for the medium, small size enterprises in the renewable and energy efficiency sectors. So the publication of the main report, which we conducted with my colleague Andrei Dodonov, were presented during the UNSC events, and it is available on the website. So for those who are interested, you can read the regional level report and understand what were the circumstances and the results of the research that we conducted. But also, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, we conducted our research in the end of last year. So we were really working with the fresh outcomes of the pandemic, let's say so. So I think that currently in the beginning of 2021, and we are now already in April, so situation is changed a little bit towards the better direction. In any case, I would like to highlight some conclusions that we had in the report, which was conducted on the regional level, that are really going in parallel and with the conclusions which were made in the case for Georgia. So definitely one of the main conclusions that we made, that pandemic was happened accidentally, so no one expected such a situation. So, and the idea that some small and medium-sized enterprises, especially in the new developing sectors like renewable energy and sustainable energy supply, energy efficiency, requires more careful support and supervision by the national level administrations, local level support, not only from the perspective of giving some direct subsidies or providing some specific financial, let's say, support measures for them, but also providing support on the level of their consumers, and also giving an opportunity for the consumer side and from the city side to understand the role and level of the renewable energy projects implementation, as well as energy efficiency project. As it was mentioned in the conclusions made by George in his report, it is really important not really direct how to say, finance or support the citizens to pay their energy bills or some other issues related to energy supply, but really to focus on supporting the implementation of energy efficiency and resource management measures, which will support to reduce these bills, and on one hand, and on other hand, stimulate the enterprises, especially medium and small size, to be more active on the market and create for them some additional potential possibilities to earn more money, even in this, even in the pandemic circumstances. Also, it is important to use the opportunity of the lockdowns and the remote and work from home to increase capacity and conduct a live online dialogue with the experts who are lucky, who were isolated at their homes, and try to obtain all the knowledge and all the fresh information, being away from their normal working routine. And actually, it's really important because the pandemic outbreak is pretty long already. So it's almost 1 year of the effective situation, and we can see that you know, after the first shock, companies, businesses, and people are we already adapt somehow to the new, let's say, new normal and new specifics of the process of receiving knowledge, of the process of managing the energy, or the process of controlling some production and technological instruments which are used in the specific facilities, or the objects which require maintenance. So it is important to say that using the opportunity of work from home is also important to conduct additional energy research and maybe profile analysis, conduct remote data analysis, data gathering in order to set more realistic targets and conduct additional evaluation of financial resources which could be attracted from the external market. For the public buildings, we could speak about extra budget financing possibilities, but also this additional and extra involvement of financial resources require better data analysis, not only from the perspective of the energy consumption, but from the perspective of potential energy efficient opportunities and the implementation of renewable energy. So, and this type of approaches and potential support from the governmental side could lead to potential opportunities for medium and small size businesses to be more active in the market and promote more the potential, services and potential solutions that they can elaborate. Also, as was mentioned by Oleg in the main regional report which we conducted, we also had a number of good case studies which are aimed to promote some specific actions which could be done for the companies even in the circumstances of the pandemic. And these case studies are really focused not only on survival for the companies, but also to explain how potentially they can change the main scope of their production and really try to find additional possibilities to maybe promote a new type of equipment that they're producing, or try to work with additional markets or provide additional services. So, for example, some of the solutions which were collected as a case studies in the regional report were aimed towards change of the specifics of companies working with renewable energy and heating, ventilation, and other aspects. For example, towards supply of specific solutions for the medical healthcare units and hospitals, because during the pandemic times, the energy consumption there increased a lot, and the energy efficiency measures are really required for the healthcare facilities in line with other consumers in order to provide for them some kind of stable and sustainable energy supply, especially related to the healthcare specifics, which requires immediate assistance, especially during the pandemic times. So, as the last conclusion, from my small speech, I would like to emphasize the role of the professional community, which should be really active even during the pandemic restrictions, because, in the normal routine life, professionals, especially in the energy sphere, renewable energy sphere, have a lot of chances to communicate, to meet in the different workshops and exchange their knowledge and best practices. And currently, already during 1 year, we have very, very big limitations for personal meetings, and this type of the workshops, for example, like we are participating today, is really much useful for these purposes, and really much supports the remote style of the work and the exchange of the best knowledge and practices. And I really hope that for the nearest future we will all have an opportunity to meet in person. But currently, I really much grateful for the UNEC and other colleagues who organized this event and gave us an opportunity also to share the knowledge and best practice even in this remote way. Thank you very much, colleagues. I would be pleased to answer any questions if you have, but I think I was on time, and I would like to give the word to Oleg. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaly. It was good to hear this regional perspective at this workshop. I would say, without further ado, I'll give the floor to Sasha Panevsky, who will give a perspective from another country, another pilot country for this work that we have done, North Macedonia. So, Sasha, please, the floor is yours.
from the pandemic and battled to keep their operations. Immediate measures were necessary since the companies were not ready and were insecure about their response, what their response should be, due to the background knowledge of the virus and lack of certainty in projections. As we saw, it needs to involve long-term planning. In the country, most of the micro, small, and medium enterprises responded to partial operations, approximately 40% work from home, 20% continued with business as usual, around 30%, and 1 of 10 companies stopped their production. 14% of the micro and small and medium enterprises managed to diversify their production to respond to the services that is in higher demand due to the crisis, and managed to have some positive influence due to lack of means of the micro, small, and medium enterprises. To battle the pandemic, the government also introduced a set of measures, 4 sets of measures that included no interest credit lines, subsidies for wages of the employees, and similar. In view of a comparison between the two countries and their responses, it can be concluded that both countries have similar definitions, for example, for micro, small, and medium enterprises, but probably slight difference in the sectorial distribution of the companies. Nevertheless, it can be noted that the governments of both countries responded in similar way due to general tendencies and, of course, some short-term view, primarily focused on preserving the labor market and subsidizing lost revenues because of preventive measures that were taken into place. This, while it is just and valiant effort to tackle the negative effects of the crisis, shows a lack of forward-thinking policy to use the crisis to improve the general situation of the micro, small, and medium enterprises and to provide them with higher resilience for upcoming adverse situations. That is why I think that this report for my country as well as Georgia is essential on longer term and can offer a solution to battle the negative impacts from the pandemic as well as potential growth for micro, small, and medium enterprises. I will not go deeply into the analysis that was done for my country, but for this occasion, I would like to stress out the main findings that were results of our analysis. The main findings for North Macedonia from the analysis in the report towards the micro, small, and medium enterprises in delivering energy efficient products and providing renewable energy equipment to increase its capabilities to overcome the crisis were increase the use of innovation funds and programs, increase the use of preferential loans for energy efficiency and renewable energy sources, creating partnership for easier access to supplies, resources, and markets, increasing online visibility, organization of trainings for employees or for students, professional upgrades, and such. Repurposing of micro, small, and medium enterprises towards highly demanded services in the new working environment because of the crisis. And based on this recommendation, we delivered several recommendations for the government of the country, like the increase of utilization of public-private partnership agreements, increase the support of new businesses, introduction of tax reduction on energy efficient and renewable energy products, introduce green procurements, dedicated communication protocols between the government and companies, introducing energy efficiency and renewable energy measures for micro, small, and medium enterprises in the national strategies and action plans, establishing a fund for energy efficiency and renewable energy, increased transparency of the process for application for subsidies, giving focus on energy efficient products and renewable energy in available programs for micro, small, medium enterprises and such, clear guidance on available measures and solutions. So now there is a new wave of support measures that will be introduced in my country, and I am really eager to see if this recommendation found their rightful place in the planning of the response with the pandemic. Thank you. Oleg?
Yes, thank you, Sasha. Thank you. It just took time for me to unmute the microphone and to turn on the video. Thank you again, Sasha. I think it is good to compare two countries from well, from different sub-regions, but still having some similarities, and also good to see where the differences are, where the similarities in approaches are, and so on. I see there have been a few I don't know, questions or comments. They're all in Georgian, so I cannot do much with them. I would like to ask either George or Margalita to react to what we see in the chat from Avtandil Giladze and Tamaz. There were quite a few things there. So if indeed, Margalita, George, you could react. Thank you.
ესე იგი რამოდენიმე
So,
კითხვა გიცით?
there are some questions. Georgi, you also get engaged. So since we are very short of time, I will do my best to go through these questions really quickly. Avtandil asks at the first place that commitment of the ministry. What is the commitment of the ministry regarding this study? Also names several documents, whether urgency of this document will be influenced. Avtandil, thank you very much at the first place for participation. And thank you for questions. I will do my best to give comprehensive answer. At the first place, you know that Georgia is a member state, and it had opportunity to carry out such a study and make kind of evaluation of this energy efficiency and renewable energy. But you know that Georgia is not that successful in this two direction. We do not have that big production, but whatever is, it was
ბატონმა გიორგი
evaluated.
მოგახსენათ, აქედან გამომდინარე აქ
Also, here, so the recommendations provided here could be taken into consideration, and we think that these recommendations will be shared with the enterprises and companies as well. And if you are asking what the state will do with this, there are some approaches, you know, about the steps made by the state in context of COVID, and we'll think what else could be taken from here. At the moment, I cannot say anything else. As for ongoing documents, NDC, climate action plan, and so on, I don't think why it could be risky for these for the activities in provided in these documents. You know that we base ourselves on 10 years development network. We mean renewable energy projects, implementation of practical projects. We namely follow this plan. So we have transferred these activities to the documents which you mentioned, including energy efficient documents. Therefore, I don't think that there will be any problem with these activities. Georgi, I will answer Tamaz as well, and then you had Tamaz means that implementation of innovations is absolutely important. So this is energy efficient measure, and it is very important. And even if there is no COVID period, if it is still a priority, and we work on innovations in technology. So we include almost everything in this plan. And when we have public hearings on this, I will show this in more details. And I want, of course, innovation part has a great role, but we have not thought of implementation of innovations in COVID period. We do not have any opinion about this, but innovations are, of course, important. As for small entrepreneurship, Georgi will tell you, and after until and energy efficiency and renewable energy laws you mentioned, after until you know that laws are adopted, but we often mention that in by law acts many issues are planned, and this is not that context, and I cannot discuss all activities. Of course, COVID made some impact. For example, there were some delays in donor-funded projects, but I want to say that we maximally try to develop by law acts. Of course, we have some delay in time, but not that damaging. It had a small impact, but we still try to reduce these impacts. Thomas mentioned that results of presentations were not included in UNEC 2020 report. Of course, it could not be included because this study is done here. Oleg will tell us more, because in 2020 report we could not include these results of this presentation and this but I believe Oleg will also say that the results and findings of these two studies will be included in 2021 report. So you are right, it is not in 2020 because it is done later. Now I'm giving floor to Georgi, and I would like to add, Georgi, that the questions given here that will translate these questions for Oleg and international experts. So questions will be translated and provided to you because we did not read the whole questions. Marita, you answered almost everything. I don't think that I need to repeat anything. Georgi, I am saying that there is no law in Georgia, but I got really good answers. I have no doubt in your profession. So what is a small enterprise? Nino mentioned micro enterprise. Where is this written, Thomas? We've discussed this for several times. I want people to know that, as I have mentioned in introduction, we do not have entire definition. So we followed the standards used by Geostat because information was got from them. And what is this standard? On what you base? So this is based on turnover and employees. So less than 9 employees. No, this is old law. So this is what Geostat uses, but less than 10 staff. And yes, there is no such law. No, there is no law. I understand. This is standard. I agree. There is no law. And I also want to say that a report of UNEC 2020, I tried to and it says that a billion is allocated for tourism. And there are examples of other countries as well. And I believe that in upcoming reports, Georgia will be presented respectively. I wanted to say, and I'm not sure whether I mentioned this, So support programs in my report, which is available only in English, I overview these support programs. I basically today talked about problems and possible solutions, but support programs we have overviewed. These support programs, it is in the report, so you can find this information about the packages proposed by the state in my report. Yeah, I'm absolutely satisfied. You provided really good information. Thank you very much. Thanks to you, to Ministry and UNEC.
უღრმესი მადლობა ბატონო.
Thank you, Tamas.
თუ არის დამატებით, ალბათ ბატონი ოლეგი აუწყებს.
Are there any other questions? I believe Oleg will say a couple of words
Yeah.
regarding 2020 report.
Thank you, Margalita. Thank you, George. Indeed, I had to listen to the interpretation because I couldn't see what was there. My understanding is the question is what will happen with the report, the regional report that we have done, whether there will be an update. What I can say, we hope that there will be one indeed. The project continues. The project will go until the end of 2021, and there will be the third phase. The first one was the regional report. The second phase was two reports for 2 pilot countries and the training workshops. And we're having the second and last one right now. In the third phase, what we applied for and we hope we'll receive it is 4 more pilot countries, the reports, guidelines and best practices, and the training workshops for them, and an update of the regional report. And as Margalita mentioned and George mentioned, it would indeed be good if in the regional report, the already available information from the 2 pilot countries is included. And we hope that will happen. And then we also expect, and we hope that you will be able to participate in that, that there will be kind of a final workshop for the project overall, where there will be exchange of experiences of not 2, but 6 pilot countries, or 6 countries. By then they won't be pilot, there will be just specific information on those. And also a review of the updated report, updated guidelines and best practices for the region overall. I also would like to say that indeed the workshop that was organized today, mainly for Georgia, and I'm very happy that we were able to organize with the support of UNDP, interpretation, English, Georgian, simultaneous interpretation. So it's useful for colleagues in Georgia, but also that colleagues from outside Georgia could participate. And I have seen among the participants experts from Albania, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from Ukraine, probably from other countries. I don't know everybody. I think there were a couple of people from outside the UNEC region. If they find this interesting, I'm very happy about that. I think I will stop now. We are now 3 minutes away from the official end of the workshop. So back to Margalita.
Thank you. I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
მადლობა პრინციპში ჩვენ თუ მეტი კითხვაც აღარ არის და დროც არ გვაქვს პრინციპში მაინც და მაინც შეგიძლიათ ჩემ მეილზედაც დააფიქსიროთ კიდევ თუ რაიმე არის საინტერესო თქვენი მხრიდან მე პატარა შეჯამებას გავაკეთებ რომ თუ თავში ჩვენ ვახსენეთ რომ საქართველოს ეკონომიკის სამინისტრო ძალიან აქტიურად თანამშრომლობს.
There is no interpretation. I don't know why.
In the beginning we mentioned Aris. Do you hear translation now, sir? Esmis. So yeah.
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay. In the beginning, I mentioned on today's meeting that we are a UNSC member state, and we for years cooperate with this organization. Not just this, but other studies are carried out under this cooperation. Regional surveys are always very interesting, not only regarding small enterprises, but in general on energy efficiency and I mean many other issues. So this active cooperation in expert groups creates kind of background which we can use in our everyday activity. And here I mean cooperation. So I mean our cooperation of the UNSC and ministry in the. Now I want to highlight the experience which we got from this organization. These in this organization are not only the countries which are historically European. There are some countries which went through the experience we are going through now. We are a young country. We need experience, support from a legal point of view, from other points of view, and so we are in process. So for us, it's especially important to have examples of many countries, and with this UNSC is really a real support for us because it has many experiences, it has many examples and cases. I want to extend my deep gratitude to UNSC and personally to Oleg Zubinsky, my deep gratitude for providing this opportunity, for being so supportive in implementation of this project. Energy Efficiency Center, thank you, Georgi. Thanks to your team for being so supportive, for working so hard, and we always supported you in terms of finding information and so on, but the main work was done by you. You also heard Nino's presentation, and Nino and Georgi had communication before, and when we heard that in Nino's organization carried out such a study, we immediately started communication. Thank you very much, Nino. Thanks to all of you who participated. Thanks to our international expert, Alexander. I remember Alexander's name. I do not remember now. I'm in a hurry. I don't remember all names, but sorry, Oleg. Thank you. On behalf of my department, I thank you. I also want to extend my deep gratitude to my team, to members of, to representatives of my department. Thank you very much. Of course, Tbilisi, UNDP. And if I forgot something, Oleg, please correct me and add. I think I said everything.
Thank you, Margalita. No, first of all, a lot of thanks to you personally and to the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development. Indeed, we have a long-standing relationship and very good cooperation. In fact, right after this meeting, we will have a conference call on renewable energy financing. So that's indeed, we have a lot of cooperation. Many thanks to George personally and for his team at the Energy Efficiency Center, Georgia, for the work he has done and his colleagues have contributed to. Many thanks to UNDP Georgia for their part in this, and to Nino for her participation in this event. Many thanks to Nino Cholokashvili from PricewaterhouseCoopers, a very interesting presentation, and please do send it to me, to us. Again, Margalita, you already said we are grateful to Alexander Dukovsky, to Sasha Panevsky, to Vitaly Baker for their participation in this event and providing their views and reflections. Finally, many thanks to the interpreters who made this possible, the simultaneous interpretation English-Georgian. That was very helpful. I have to say, we had, I believe, over 50 participants who stayed for the whole 2 hours, which means there was something interesting. You don't just keep
Yeah, sure.
keep it open for 2 hours as if you have nothing better to do. Maybe it was
Yeah.
something useful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Madloba ყველას, dear Oleg, dear
Thanks
John.
a lot.
I will see you in soon in next Zoom meeting. Yeah. Thank you. დიდი მადლობა ყველას და ქართულსაც როგორც
Thanks a lot. And Georgi will share Georgian version of it. And I also want to extend my deep gratitude to all of you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all. And the links are in the chat for the workshop and for the project. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Yes, I saw. Yes, yes.